today. Well, let's talk about today.
If you're at a national state level, you have to run non-sale, it's wholesale.
Is like 9,000.
The only mistake I made, I didn't put her in the registration booth with the
Just this ever-evolving story.
Ladies and gentlemen, good Monday evening. Welcome to the Let's Grow Pulling Podcast, official podcast of the Beer Money Pulling Team, where we keep the party going, or we're just your recovery Monday night from a long weekend of pulling. Back co-host again with us this evening, Logan Stevens. Logan, how you doing? I look forward to talking some mini rods tonight a little bit. How are things going out in Kansas?
It's going really well. Just fighting through some rainstorms, and I wish I could have made it to such an awesome weekend. Y'all looks like y'all had out at the Pullers Championship.
It was, so I was able to start working on an article today, and the highlight of this article was the expected and the unexpected. A lot of things we expected to see happen. A lot of interviews with the Simons family. You're never surprised when you got Brandon and RJ in there in multiple classes, but we saw some runs that we didn't expect. We saw some track conditions we didn't expect. We got hailed on. We saw blue skies. Let's quickly, because we've got a loaded show, folks. Here's what we've got on tap. Todd and Tarry Feiss, the feisty farmer, getting it done out there. And, of course, the Snow Farmer team. They're going to talk to us about their first time ever in that 7,400-pound mod class and walking away as the weekend winners. Esdon and Ellie Bartling are going to come on after that. Hometown winner Friday night on his own track. Might have even met his hero. We've got a cool story. And then it's pulling through the past to close down the show. Ed Sass with the vintage tractor he calls the Herd Boar is going to join us. Let's take about 2 or 3 minutes. You're a mini rod guy. Let's talk about that mini rod class. You texted me on Friday, said, Mike, who you got? And I just shot from the hip immediately. And I said, I'm feeling Logan Peissig and I'm feeling Tyler Slaw. That just what came into my mind. I had 2 people standing next to me in the winner's circle on Saturday night. Peissigs were standing there as your overall weekend winner, and Tyler Slaw was war hooping and having a great time as your Saturday night winner. Did you see any surprises, or did the mini rod class to you, those are your guys. Did they kind of fall where you expected them to fall?
I was very surprised with Peissigs coming out kind of as an underdog, state level guys, which they've still got national level equipment, but laying down 2 runs that put them 10 foot in front of all the other competitors were huge. And then Tyler doing double duty, filling in for Bruce due to his injury, laying down another monster run on Saturday night. Any one of those guys could win it. And then you got a good showing with Leichner's and their new vehicle. So there was a whole bunch of different things that was going on in such a short amount of time. And that's really what a mini rod is.
Absolutely. Good. Did everybody's heart well to see Bruce at the track? That yes. Was, I think, just collective. He was there backing Tyler in. Tyler, he's a fun personality, but he's a workhorse too. So he's going to make sure that Dad's tractor gets down the track as well. Saw some new iron in that. And the Peissigs, we had them on the podcast about a month before the Pullers Championship. And I'm going to kind of paraphrase for them, but they pretty much said, with these 2 mini rods, we're here to kick butt and chew bubblegum, and we're all out of bubblegum, boys. And so they kind of backed it up. I'm with you. No one was shocked, but they were like, okay, they're here. They're here. Let's go. So It's going to be a fun year in your class. Let's stick with the noise. Let's stick with those V8 Hemis. Weekend winner. We're going to go ahead and bring them on the show. Todd and Tarry Feiss. Tarry Feiss doing the driving duties. Got a Saturday night win, got an overall weekend win, the Pullers Championship. Let's go ahead and bring them on and see how things are going for them. Todd and Tarry, how are we doing this evening? Thank you so much for joining us. And Man, that was a fun weekend. Are you guys still just as jazzed up as I am after all that?
Pretty much.
It was a good weekend, and I hardly got any sleep the next night or Saturday night. I was running that through my head dozens and dozens of times.
So let's talk about the obvious challenge, or the elephant in the room. You guys typically, well, pretty much as long as I've seen the tractors as they exist right now, have always been in that light modified, or light unlimited, as NTPA called it at one time, in that division. You come over to run with, whatever you want to call it, the light modified for the Puller Championship, or ITPA mod, or Outlaw mod. What is the weight in NTPA? Is it 6,000 or 62?
Well, right now the light mod is at 6,200 pounds, but most of our experience is at 7,500 pounds at the region level. We've run region level for years and years, and even when we were running the Grand National Light Unlimited and Light Mod, we did a lot of running at the local, or not local, but at the region level. And
75.
Yeah, we've got close to 100 wins at the regional level with NTPA.
So certainly not as not near the adjustment that maybe I had thought or other fans had thought out there. Tell us about that regional level. I have watched them. I watched them a couple of years ago at Fort Recovery and had kind of pushed that out of the back of my mind. Similar rules. Can you run twin Hemis, triple Chevys? How does that kind of shake down where you guys typically are?
Actually, it's almost identical to what the Outlaws run. I think the only difference in the Outlaws is their Chevrolet style motors. They're not as loud as much overdrive on the blowers as they are with NTPA region. But other than that, the rules are pretty much the same. You can run 3 Chevrolet or wedge style motors, 2 Hemis with 14s. Got to run 871s on the 3 motor setups, and you can run Hemis with 3 motors, but they limit the overdrive to like 20 or 37, I think, at that point. Scott Tedder's got a tractor he runs with us with 3 Hemis, and if that thing's right, he smokes us.
And the turbines are also involved.
Yeah, there's turbines. The Bargies have their turbines that run with us. The last 2 years, the Bargies have been real tough in our region area with their twin turbine tractors.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, Cody Behrens, Kyle Petch, they wanted to come over out of Nebraska from the Outlaws, wanted to come and run with this class because of the new safety rules that we have administered with those turbines. They just didn't have everything quite updated in time. The turbines they can get salty with the best of them in that class too. So no stranger to the class as a whole, but you got to go do battle with some of those west of the river guys all the way out in Texas. Talk to us about, running with Cameron Neves or Donald Nelson, or I saw Brandon Gilliland was commenting on here as well. Got to be fun seeing some iron you don't typically see, right?
We were really looking forward to that. I wanted to meet those guys. I wanted to run against them. You want to know where you stack up with some other tractors in different organizations. And we were really looking forward to it. Now, you would think we would not be nervous about it, but because we were running a different set of tires than we've ever run before, they were brand new, Bob Parks tires, and I was a nervous wreck. I don't know if my driver was quite as nervous as I was.
I was nervous because I've never had a new set of tires, so that was pretty sweet, but they hooked up and went, so I was happy. But those competitors out there, they're just okay. I think it was all the driver.
It was. Well, it's certainly, they reset the sled on you, and Terry, we are gonna give credit to the driver, because I think anybody with the right set of tires or whatever can blow it out the back door as big as you did one time. To come back around and say, hey, you threw weight in the wagon, that doesn't bother me any. We'll park it at the big end again. That is, to me, a reflection of a driver who's very comfortable in that seat, knows what she's doing. How long have you been at this pulling business? Kind of tell us how one earns some of that comfortability that you have.
I've been driving tractors for a long time. I started with an economy hot rod single engine tractor, and it teaches you a lot about pulling. It was slow, but it was an adrenaline rush. You get the feel of things and how it works. I've been driving, I keep saying 30 years, but.
Well, you started driving full time in 1995.
So, but the twin engine Hemi thing, I got a need for speed. Unlike Todd, he's a torque man. I'm a speed person. And I do like to go fast. And those 2 rides were incredibly fast and really fun. And when it's right, it's really good and really fun.
That class, and Logan, I want to hear from your perspective, because you're a mini rod guy. You work with these Hemis, but I felt that class, and I watched that class a lot, but even on Saturday night, they had more speed. You guys had more speed, your run and, Cameron's and Donald's and Wayne's. You guys were cooking. I mean, is that just, the horsepower to weight ratio, or were you guys just on a track that you guys worked well? What do you attribute those fast runs to? Man, the crowd loved them.
Well, my setup was really good. Todd did a great job setting me up. The weight, the air pressure, all that good stuff. But the dirt was way better on Saturday night for our tractors than Friday night. Way better. We like it tacky yet refined. I always say it just like that. I like it tacky. And it was really sweet. And that made a huge difference in the pull.
Yeah. Go ahead, Logan.
So you talk about setup. You came from a 3rd place on a Friday night and followed it up with a win on Saturday. What'd you change between the 2 nights?
Well, honestly, on Friday night,
We changed the dirt.
on Friday night, we knew the track was hard and it was not hooking, because you could tell every tractor that went down the track, they weren't picking the front tires. So I wanted to lighten the front up a bunch, but I was really afraid to do that because we had these tires on that we had no idea how they would react.
That was the first hook ever on those tires.
Yeah.
So we didn't know.
So I didn't want to have her go down through there on the wheelie bars. So I had about probably 120 pounds more on the front than I really wanted to have on there Friday night. Saturday night, we had everything we had on the front. And we don't do that very often.
Saturday, I think, that's interesting, because I was talking with, it was actually Cameron Neves in the pits this weekend. It might have been George Neves, now that I think about it. This is one of the classes where you can still tinker with the weight quite a bit. The super stocks, it's everything on the front, always forget about it, And if you walk around a lot of these mods in your class, you'll see there's still a good amount strapped on the back, and they'll move and tinker a lot. So to put everything out on front. But Todd, if you're anything like me, when I went out there to do the trackside reporting, I took about 6 steps down that track, and I knew you better be hanging it on the nose for this one. Throw out the playbook on Friday. Friday night's track was a one-off, kind of a dead horse or whatever, but they got it right on Saturday, and it was going to bite you.
If you were running big tires on Saturday night, you better have a lot of front end weight. We very seldom have 100% of our weight on the front, or as much as we can get on the front on these tractors. I don't know. I think we're in the 32 to 3,300 pounds on the front axle. And typically we'll go anywhere from maybe 28, 29 up to about maybe 32 in the region hook like that at that 7,500 pound. But this particular event, and another one's like that is where they have the Enderley at Urbana, Ohio.
Oh,
you
sure.
Can your front end. If that track is typical, you better have a lot of front end.
So we're right on it. And I do want to open up the door, because Logan's got a lot of stuff he's going to contribute here, understanding these V8s better than I do and understanding tires. But while we're talking about Friday and Saturday, and folks, I want you to see, you can probably just see the difference in the dirt. And before we go any further, they were dealt a tough hand. When it's hailing and it is raining and the track is covered, you have to keep the track covered, but then you immediately pull it off. You need 3 or 4 hours to work water into it.
Right.
When you pull the tarp off and it's been raining right up until showtime, you don't have that amount of time. So it was just one of those. We made lemonade out of lemons, and it just is what it is. Kenzie, go ahead and show us Friday night's run, and we can even see, this track they're talking about, and they can tell us about what they learned from night 1. And after that, we'll go to night 2. So Friday night run on the Feisty Farmer.
All right, where's all our ladies tonight? Come on, ladies, let's make some noise. Very nice.
walk us through that. What's your reaction when you take a look at that run right there?
Well, as far as setup goes, I had a little too much tire pressure because, again, we weren't used to the tires. We didn't know where to go. It was a totally crapshoot on that one. You see the thing shooting ducks, which tells you it's not taking any power whatsoever. Not picking the front at all. You don't get any weight transfer. Part of that is me just being leery. If I'd have had my Firestone tires on, I'd have had a lot less weight on the front. But we learned a lesson there. We learned a couple things, and we made changes in the tire pressure for Saturday. Plus, of course, the track was, like you said. And I agree with you 100%. They were bad hand. They did the best they could.
Yep, and that's pulling. We've all seen that. It's easy. I think it would be way too easy to sit back and say, "Oh, well, they didn't build, or they didn't this or that." That happens when you have to cover a track. You'll ironically, in a rain delay, you'll almost see a dry track, because if they've had it covered, there's no doubt in my mind they could have made that a perfect track. We'd have dropped our first green at 10 o'clock at night. So you just have to make a choice, and I stand by the choice they made, and everybody pulled on the same track, so
That's right.
it just is what it is.
As an old Kentuckian told me one time, we're all playing in the same sandbox.
Right. So let's take a look. Kenzie, do you have, I'm going to put Kenzie on the stage really quick, or I'm just going to ask her. Kenzie, if you have the first run Saturday night, show us that, and then show us the second run. Just show it to us back to back. I think we've got all three of your runs on here. Show us both runs, Kenzie, and we'll analyze these. Folks, take a look at how much better these runs get.
All right, here we go. Up by Farmer. Here he fights.
So the first run, fans, just to bring everyone up to speed, that Saturday night, you can immediately see that front end comes up, the weight's where it needs to be, the track's where it needs to be. First run, fans, that was the one that actually ran null because of a sled reset. And then the second run was the official hook. And I'll be darned if your balance didn't almost look even better on that second pass on Saturday night. Tell us what you thought about both those runs. When you see a flagman running backwards, you're doing something right.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
On my second run, the flagman come up and he said, "I'm sorry we had to reset, but I was running as fast as I could behind you. I didn't want to get run over." But that was cool. But the first run, I used my brakes. I was worried about the left line, and I was braking a little bit. And, it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it, but it was definitely fast. So that was cool. And I was shooting a lot of ducks and stuff, that cleaned up much better. So, Todd, your take?
Well, and the other thing that most people probably don't know about is when we went off the track, I told Caleb, who helps us and drives our toolcat for us, I said, just go back to the trailer. I said, we're going to have to fuel this thing up because I'm guarantee you they're going to change the sled. Sure enough, we get to the hauler and Christy comes running up and says, we got to change that. I said, I understand. I don't like it, but I understand.
Yep.
But then when we came around to start the second time, my starter bracket on the front of her left engine was broke. And we put starters on both instead of kickstarting one.
Okay.
And we've been doing that for several years because we feel like it's hard on the clutches to start that way all the time. So I go to put the starter on and it's broke. And I was able to get it on. We get the motors both started, and I couldn't get the starter off the tractor.
Oh, my goodness.
I was yanking and jerking and pulling, and I could not get it off. Jonathan Mears come over. He's trying to help me. Caleb, our helper's trying to get it off with me.
And I'm sitting there with the hot motor to start with, and it's getting warmer and warmer.
Yeah, so I was about to go into panic mode, and we finally got it off and got out on the track. But it was like, and then it didn't even occur to me then, but then later on in the evening, I'm thinking, dummy, all I had to do was get the bar out and start the thing, shut it off, get the starter off, and then restart. But yeah, it was a little dramatic, and I was really nervous at that point, but she just laid down another picture perfect run.
Well, let's talk about the nerves at the beginning to the pure excitement at the end of your run. What was that like halfway through your run when you felt that, okay, we're on another trip down the pass, and then just hanging it way out there? How can you explain that?
I say this all the time to people. I drive that 5,000 horsepower tractor, and I'm kind of cool about it. I'm cool as a cucumber. But when I go tubing at our ski area, I scream all the way down the hill. So I can ski, but tubing scares me, I guess, or makes me scream. I was a little, I get dry mouth. I'm, nervous about it, but I felt comfortable. I knew Todd had me set up good. I felt comfortable. As long as it runs, I'm good. And so I really felt okay with it after being down the track once already. And I felt like we had the weight right. I felt like it was going to just go, and it did. So as long as I didn't blow it up because it was hot, that was my main concern.
I want to do kind of a recap on that Saturday night too. I saw Brandon Gilliland's been in here contributing a lot. And I'm trying to remember, was he your test hook on Saturday night? So he got his pass down. They looked at, you guys were the number 2 spot. Is that right?
Yes.
They looked at one more, decided to reset after that. I was worried. So the third tractor, Owens, did Owens go third after you? And even after adding weight to the wagon, he poked one out there in the 340s.
He did.
I kind of feel every association kind of has their distances where they like to live. And I've noticed at TPC over the past 2 years, which is the only PPL tech pool that I go to, they like to keep them fairly tight. They really like that good old school 320, 330. That's kind of their bread and butter. Us and the Outlaws, hey, if we got 450 feet to play with, we'll run it all the way out to the nearest interstate, So 340 is a good number in that class, based on what I've seen, the 340s, the 350s. I was nervous that they were going to reset the sled a second time. I thought that was a good call. I thought it was set up perfect. But you talked about getting on that left or getting on that right brake. Every one of you guys started getting sucked off to the middle. I don't know enough about driving. Tell me what creates something like that.
I don't know what really creates it. It's just certain tracks do certain things, but you can watch some tractors and see what they're doing. And actually, tractors were going in both directions on that track. And
a lot of them were going right, and mine was going left.
Yeah, if you looked at the mod class before us, my goodness, they were all one side or the other.
That west side track is known to kind of fall off to the right side. But I know I saw Donald in your class, and then you, Terry, you guys were kind of sliding back to the middle. So,
well, when we lined her up, I put her kind of a little bit to the right of center, and I told her to aim for the middle of the track at the far end. And that was the ideal pass, I thought. She did pretty close to that. And it's, I don't know, it seemed like it was pretty easy to control our class anyway, to keep the tractors on the track, where the mod tractors, they had a devil of a time.
It looked like they bit even harder. They knew they were going to bite harder Saturday than they did on Friday. I think that they were shocked at just how much, and that's a reflection, and it's going to be the story, and it's going to be a dead horse, but we're going to talk about it, how much the track changed in the 2 nights. I don't know that I've ever heard of a modified lowering their hitch. You hear the Light Supers doing that, but I heard Dan talking about how the Simons actually made the call right there at the starting line after they got out of the throttle to lower that hitch, because it was just, and it still did, when it went down, it bit like a sow out there. Did you feel, Terry, I feel like your driving style is very, like you said, it's calm, it's collected, it's very confident, it's very smooth. Did you kind of feel like, okay, after that first run, if you can replicate that, you had a good shot at winning? Did you kind of have that in the back of your mind, kind of going into that last hook, say, okay, the cards are here for us. This could be one we could capitalize on?
Well, all my thoughts were about, I don't want to blow it up because it was hot. And so my style is a little bit different than most people because I don't like to hammer it and be unsettled. I want a smooth start and go a solid, smooth start fast. And sometimes the starting line had a lot of holes in it and ruts in it from the mini rods, and from the other classes were just eating up that very right in front of the sled when you hooked up. And sometimes that'll take you left or right. I mean, depends on, how you get after it. And I didn't want to lay it over and hammer it because I didn't know what was going to happen there. And so I'm a little bit smoother, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes I need to come out faster, but it worked. It worked Saturday night both times, and I felt real good about it. But I don't anticipate anything. I just hope for the best, but I do what you got to do.
Yep.
We are both track readers. I mean, we've been reading tracks forever, and we like to get out there and poke around and see what's happening. We don't always get a chance to do that, but the track makes a huge difference. Just a little divot or a little wet spot or a little dry spot, or somebody that's pounded a hole and dug the tractor tires in. You want to avoid those things, and we try to read that.
Sure.
Make a heck of a mini rod driver with that driving mindset right there.
No way. You heard my snow tubing story, right?
Well, and my thoughts on whether we could duplicate it was when she ran the first time, not only did she back out of it, but the sled operator had his rear brakes locked up.
Yeah.
So she had a lot more distance left. But like you said, when Tommy Owens went out there as far as he did, it was like, oh, are we going to be able to catch that? Because that is an awesome tractor, and he does a great job. And you think, wow, can I even touch that? Well, I guess we found the answer, and we were so ecstatic. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I hold my breath because I've started looking at things from a production or an announcer's mindset, and there's nothing that fans want to, anytime the fans hear sled reset, there's always the and I thought, man, we're 342 or whatever he's at after just having a tough call. I thought, boy, please leave it, because this is going to make for a dogfight. And they did. And that class can run. That can be an absolute speed class. Donald found something with his new mod on Saturday night. That's only the third or fourth time he's had it out. Cameron was on a heck of a pass until I think he lost a throttle cable or something like that. Owens has laid down a good one. Gilliland, he's always going to be there competing. There's just a lot of great competition. It had to be a lot of fun to rise to the top of that. Randy Ryder's coming in with a comment. We'll circle back to this. We've talked about it, but let's hit it again. He says, what tires did you guys have on? Well, that was kind of the story of the weekend, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Everybody was tuned into that story right there. And like I said, we fretted about what to do with tires. I borrowed some we borrowed some Mitas tires for both tractors last year off of the Criswell Benedict team. And we used those for the last one or two events that we went to. And I was just racking my brain what I was going to do about tires. And Larry Darbro, that used to work for Bruce, he trims my tires. And he called me one day and said, what about Parks? So I talked to Bob and stuff, and we decided to go with Parks tires. And it was either going to be Hero or Zero.
Because he was creating a new tire for our class. It wasn't like they're already out there. So, we were experimental. Yeah.
They were the very first set that they put out on the track. And he was tickled to death. We were. Now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, now everybody's going to have to buy Parks. Well, it's going to take some time to know whether or not that is actually going to be the dominant tire, or if it's just going to be,
it's interesting in this class. When Mitas came out for all of pulling, everyone ran out and said, we got to have Mitas. But then what I've learned from your guys' class is a lot of people put the Mitas on and then kind of took them off and said, well, actually, that's a little bit more tire than maybe we want. Well, then some of the turbine guys in your class said, no, we really like them. And then whole shots came out. So, there is a lot of ebb and flow, and that's fun stuff for, folks to talk about. I'm just tickled that you guys took a gamble. You had the Hero or Zero, and it panned out for you, because that's a good feeling for everyone involved. Guys, we only got about 5 more minutes. Todd, you sent me a bunch of great photos today, and I do want to bring these on because I think they're great to talk about. Let's chat about some really cool stuff that you sent me. You talked about going down the slopes. I'd never seen a picture of one of these before. Tell the folks what your day-to-day job is. And then I think I was calling this by the right name. What do you guys do for a living? And what the heck is this wild piece of machinery right here?
Well, actually, what I do day to day is work on pulling tractors, but I'm retired from this business.
What's the snow farmer? What's the snow and snow farmer?
We built a ski area in Southeast Indiana with Terry's family, and we have a downhill snow skiing area, and we have those machines right there. We've got about six of those machines. They're snowcats, piston bully snowcats. They groom the snow. We move snow with them. And that's what I did for 30 years. And basically it's like farming in the snow. We go out there every day and groom the slopes. And my son came up with that name, and he said, it is not a farmer like a farm tractor. It's a snow farmer. Snow farmer.
SNO farmer.
I always said it as, you know, it's no farmer. Like
exactly.
this is no farming vehicle. This is a competing vehicle.
Exactly.
We learned a lot on that too, to farm in the snow and running the slopes and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Works on a lot of levels. I want to bring up another photo. This is important to me. You know, Terry, there's been a lot of men drive over the years, as with a lot of things. Motorsports or sports in general tend to be kind of male dominant. But you, other people like Rodlin Knox come to mind, or Connie Mullenix, Abby Leichner on the younger end of things. There's a lot of ladies in the sport that prove that you guys can get it done just as well as anybody. Young female came up, wanted to chat with you. Is that kind of the message you told her? Say, hey, look, young lady, you can be right here in the driver's seat someday.
Well, that's an interesting story. That little girl, her father builds little tractors, and she has a little tractor, like a garden tractor size tractor. I love her shirt. I would love to have a shirt like that fits me. I let her sit on the tractor. I try to reach out to kids and anybody really that wants to sit on my tractor, get a picture with it, whatever. She was tickled pink. She had her little book there is an autograph book, and she wanted my autograph, which was great. Her name is Tegan. If she's listening, I really appreciate her coming by. She climbed up there, had a big grin on her face. She was all excited. We went to North Carolina and pulled a couple years ago. Pulled off the track, stopped the tractor. You talk about let's grow pulling.
Yep.
And I let a couple people sit on our tractors. We were there for 2 hours after the pull, letting people sit on our tractors. It was amazing. Those people had never done or seen anything like it.
Grown men, some of them.
I asked some grown men, would you want to sit on my tractor? Oh my gosh, they were all over it. And it was pretty cool. And I always make sure they get a picture of the motors, not just the seat, you know, because that's where the power is. But I try to reach out and let people sit on our stuff a lot, because I know it gets them more involved, and they got a piece of the action. And I sat on that tractor, you know, and I think that's really cool. So
I'd never been on a running pulling vehicle until this week. 'Cause I'm a grown man. I'm not going to be the least bit bashful or ashamed to admit it. So Doug Both, I was talking to him, and he wanted to fire his up, and he said, hey, we got to have someone in the seat for, you know, safety rule. He goes, climb up on in there, Mikey. And I thought, oh my God, I am going to be in there. But I thought, I'm not going to touch anything either at the same time. So I just videotaped it on my phone. But no, it's you guys are rock stars to these fans and to these kids or adults or whatever. And I could just tell by the way you guys have the passion in this sport. You're in it for all the right reasons. It's a lot of fun to talk to pullers like yourselves.
Thank you. It's a 15-second rush like no other. And when it's good, it's fantastic. When it's bad, we don't want to go there. So.
Well, and the last point I'd like to make is I really enjoyed meeting the guys from the Outlaw guys, the guys from Texas. You know, I've met one or two of them over the years, but I got to talk to all of them, and as most pullers are, they just seem like really great people.
Rob Benton, no, you cannot drive it if you get to sit on it. You have your own ride. I just saw him on there.
Yep. So, yeah, to hit a couple of the comments, and I'm going to keep you on here for about 1 or 2 more minutes.
Sure.
Mower Park says, both very nice people. We enjoy and respect you from Middletown. Tyler Slaw, I wanted to hit his. He did say, he commented and said, Light Mods were the best show all weekend. It was awesome. It's a fun class. I really enjoy it. Randy Ryder says, Doug Voth and I enjoyed pulling with you guys. I'm going to be openly biased here, and I'm just going to ask a home team question. 7,400-pound modified, you pulled with some of these outlaw guys. Have you ever considered maybe Wisner or Rock Valley or crossing the river and, coming and hanging out with us maybe once or twice in the summer?
Well, we're really good friends with the Sullivan Group, and I knew they were going to Texas last year, and we mulled it over a little bit. And I think actually we had some broken parts at that time, but we thought about it, but
it is so far.
And we're not spring chickens anymore, so it's a lot of work for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys are legends in your own right, at the Inderley, in the region, going out in the Light Unlimiteds, coming and winning this weekend. Thank you so much for this interview. I've enjoyed the heck out of this. The smile on your face coming into that winner's circle on Saturday night was everything pulling's about. Who do you need to thank before we let you go this evening?
I'd like to put a word out to Chad Mayhill for getting our tires sharpened and ready to go for me set up. We pushed him a little hard and he came through with that. And his Caleb's father, Dan Guess, he ran and got them for us. And he also went to SCS Gearbox and picked up my reverser that was in shambles. Doug Albach put our clutches together for us. Rick Ertl builds our motors. He doesn't have them all done. I'd like to get them all done, but he got 2 of them done. We were hoping to have 2 tractors at the pull this weekend, but he's not ready. Caleb is our right-hand man in the truck and trailer and keeps us rolling and does a great job starting us and getting things ready, and we couldn't do it without him. So you got a thank list here?
I think you covered most of it, and Bob Parks for, going the extra mile and starting to make those 30.5s. And Bob, we were nervous, but it seems to work out so far.
Well said. Well, guys, I can truly honestly say this is one of the most fun times I've had on an interview in a long time. I'm excited to be back in the outdoor pulling season again. Congratulations on your awesome runs on Friday and Saturday. Good luck in 2025, and just keep on pulling. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
You betcha. That was Todd and Tarry Feiss. Logan, in the broadcasting world, in the pulling world, like anything, it can really be a job. It can, get tight, get tense at times. That kind of relit all my passion. I want to be Todd Feiss when I grow up. It's just, I've got a new thing now, like just cool as the other side of the pillow. You've probably interacted with them more than I have. I'm sure you cross paths with them out on the circuit from time to time.
I've never crossed paths. This is the first.
Yep. Big time pullers out there at the region. And I think it's region 2. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'd have to ask them. And I need to do a better job at keeping track of my notes on that regional level. Regional level, not any less than Grand National, just closer to where they prefer to pull. And that's something we always need to remember. 7,400-pound mods, folks, they're a fun class. Shifting gears totally. Logan, what's the hardest pull to win? For any puller, it's a saying as old as time. Hardest pull to win, it's a puller's what?
It's their hometown pull, quite frankly.
Puller's hometown. The hometown curse. It's the hardest place to win. What if you could win at your hometown in front of a championship caliber amount of vehicles and meet your hero all in the same weekend? Would you call that a pretty successful weekend?
I'd call that a pretty successful weekend, and I think it's a weekend that the guy we're going to bring on had just for him here.
Let's do it. Esdon and Ellie Bartling, right out of Nashville, Illinois, riding dirty and the possum. Guys, so you didn't have to have a long drive home like some of our other drivers, but I bet you might have had just as many emotions or as much exhaustion as anyone else. Hometown pull. Is there anything like pulling in front of the hometown fans?
No, it's the hardest place in the world to win, no matter where you go. I mean, no matter what, anybody there that was there this weekend could attest for it that if it was their hometown, they're going to throw everything they got to try to win it. They may, like I did, look like a zero at times on Saturday. And then, you look like a hero on Friday. Something we were going to mention, our internet is not the greatest right now, so please bear with us. We have been walking around the farm.
I saw you in the green room, and I thought, man, these guys are on a mission to give us the coolest backdrop, because I looked down and you're in front of the grain bins, and I look down and you're in the shop. Now I see you're in the guest bedroom or something. So, hey, it is what it is. We can hear you great. That's the most important thing. And so we're going to tell the stories. But, yeah, thanks for the heads up. I thought you were just looking for the perfect place to try to get everything done. Friday night, we're going to beat the dead horse, because it is what it is. The track was a challenge. It was a tricky track, but you were able to tame it. Talk to us about it, Esdon.
Like I said in my interview, no matter what, and Esdon Lane can top for this, there's no such thing as a bad track. There's bad setups. Well, my crew that we have with both tractors, they are top of the line. We're going out and we may not win every night, but I can attest that we're trying to be a top 5 tractor every night. We're shooting for the moon. That's with both tractors. And fortunately, we didn't have good luck with the possum that night, which it probably would have had an even better night, judging by the way it ran Saturday night compared to mine. It's just, when you have good crew around you and a good tractor, it's hard to beat. It's, it's just something that you're like, even with the hometown pressure, it's just another day, another drive, and hopefully you come out on top in it.
Right. So fans, just bring you up to speed. We're talking to Esdon and Ellie Bartling. They drive the Riding Dirty and the Possum of your 8,500 limited pro stock. Is that how I've always got to be careful, because different associations kind of have different monikers for them. Where I'm at, we call them LLPs, or light limited pro stocks. You guys call them 85 limited pros. Is that kind of what you call them all summer long? 8,500 limited pros. Spot on. So 466 cubic inch, 8,500 pounds, what, a 3-inch turbo, 24 5s on the back. Is that kind of your standard recipe? Am I getting all that correct?
Yep. So, yeah, we're a 13 millimeter pump with a 3-inch inlet by a 4-inch exhaust, 8,500 pounds. I always catch myself, like, we'll go pull at the Outlaw Pull in Montgomery City, and I got to get used to saying light limited pro.
LLP. We always LLP. Well, I got in trouble when I announced up in the booth last year at Nashville, because I came over there and I was LLP, and they said, hey, on this side of the river, that's not what we call them. So I got myself in trouble. So you get it. We both in there. But no, it was it's a fun class. It's a tough running bunch of tractors out there. Now that Riding Dirty and the Possum, they've had quite a bit of success over the years. What are some of your highlights dating back over the past 10 years or so? I want to hear from both of you. Esdon, tell me your Riding Dirty highlights. Ellie, tell me some Possum highlights.
Some Possum highlights is that last year or the year before, I don't remember, but we got 3rd at the indoor Midwest Nationals. If that's right, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
I got 3rd at Whole Sours for the first time pulling this year. Overall, we do pretty well over the season. I've had a couple first place with also like a lot of top 5 finishes, so I say it's a pretty good tractor.
Yeah, it's a very good tractor, and I've got some pictures, and we're going to talk about your run and talk about the lineage. It is certainly a tractor that has always been a good tractor from day one. Riding Dirty, Esdon, what pops into your mind is just some of your favorite highlights in your career on it?
Oh, I would say, all in all, from when Dad and I started talking with Kenny on it, it was probably 2021 when we picked that tractor up with Kenny for part ownership. And ever since then, I went to a pull. The best one I got was we went to Washington, Missouri. And it was that year COVID when it was weird,
Yeah.
You didn't know if you're pulling. But the state of Missouri loved tractor pulling, so they had it. Illinois, we only had 2. So we went to Washington, and the Possum got beat on 50 times on a dyno that spring. And that's not an exaggeration. That was like, you can talk to Dad, Chad, all of them 50 times because we didn't know if we were going to go pulling. Well, we found something, and it was probably the most horsepower we had out of it. Well, we went to Washington, and Dad was going to pull the possum, obviously, because it's his baby. And he's like, well, you drive Dirty. Let's see it. And at that time, Dirty was probably 150 horse behind. You know, it was outdated.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So we went down there. There were 26 of us in the class. I was like 10th hook. I was chirping the Charger, and I took the lead with that tractor, and nobody got even close to me. Dad was the last hook out of 26. He came up to me, and he goes, if you think I'm going to let you win, you're mistaken. And he blew my doors off. But even if getting second, I have never laughed so hard because that, you know, when you go 1 and 2 with your tractors out of a group like ours, that is so tough. You know, like you can watch this weekend. You know, what was the max distance on Saturday night? Friday night was kind of a, you know, the track deal. If you hit the right holes, you know, whatever. Yeah. But Saturday night, you could see 10 foot separated us, you know.
Yeah. And I like that, you know, the single Charger classes, we see that a lot, you know, maybe in the super farms in your guys' class, because it doesn't leave a lot of room for error. And it's going to come back to what the driver can do. When you know everyone's going to stack them in, you know, within 12 feet, and there might be 15 tractors all in there, and you know 5 of them are going to be within, you know, 2 feet. I find that entertaining. So you gotta, it separates the cream on the driver's aspect. I think that's a neat part of your guys' class. Let's take a look. You know, we have it in here. Go ahead, Logan, or go ahead, Esdon.
Our class is one of those deals where we don't build stupid power like the 4-1, for instance. You know, when they have problems, they can usually, the horsepower corrects a little bit out of it. Our tractors, we're speed. You know, you can usually tell who's going to win tonight by how fast the person is going. Friday night, you can watch my pass. I just looked 10 times faster than everybody else did. And that's not, I'm not trying to make myself sound good. It's just how our class is. Jason Zumball that won Saturday night, or Dylan Haney, sorry, who won Saturday night, had a beautiful run, and he just looked 10 times faster than the rest of us, you know. It's just one of those deals with our class, you know. You hit it, and hopefully you hit it right.
You've got the perfect segue. You said we could watch a run from Friday night. Let's do exactly that. And I want you, after we watch it, to kind of, you know, give me your gut feedback or kind of critique it and say what worked or what didn't work. Just kind of hit the video review. Kinsey, Friday night run on the Riding Dirty, your winning pass in the 8,500 limited pro stock.
Right here in Nashville.
I feel like, looking back at it now, it wanted to try to get under the Charger, but you found about an extra 10 feet, kind of like the story you told us when you were chirping the turbo. Just give us a feedback. What goes through your mind when you see that pass?
So basically with that pass, at the beginning, I was more like, everybody always asked me after the tractor runs, they're like, oh, what were you thinking? You know, did our internet die there for a second?
Nope, you're good. You're still live.
So on the line, people are always like, what are you always thinking when you're like, you know, running? And to be honest with you, my thought going through my head when I took off, I was like, don't make me look like, pardon my French, a dumbass. That's all I was like. Sure. I took off at about 4,400 RPMs, and to be honest with you, Dad and I were, and Chad, we were going off and throwing ideas for his takeoff, and everybody was trying to middle. I looked at him, I was like, well, the left side looks pretty good in my opinion. Let's try it. Nobody's going to try it. It's here or zero. You know, with this group, you got to try something to stand out. And about halfway down it, I had to hit the right brake because it was going to bring me to the line, the middle line there. once I hit that brake, you can see in the video I turned my wheel a little bit. I don't know why I do it. I just turn it a little bit to help correct so I don't have to tap the brake a whole lot. That's just me, how I drive. I don't turn it stupid, but, you can see I do turn it. But no, whenever it got straightened out, I was like, oh, now we got to go. And I looked down at the holes in the ground, and I knew I went by the leader because obviously furthest holes from the end. And you can see in the end of the videos, I got a little excited. My head was starting to nod and everything.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, they're buffering on us. So while they're doing that, Logan, give me your feedback on this. I've talked to you a lot about V8 tractors, and we've talked a lot about the mini rods and some others. These single turbo smokers, or these even kind of small cubic inch smokers. What's your gut feedback on those, Logan, and kind of what'd you think of watching that run right there?
It's kind of a whole different driving style to them. The power is not there, and you got to keep in mind where your RPMs are with your turbochargers because you don't have a big old supercharger belt driving your main power source. So it's more of a driver's class than anything, and just making sure you have the right setup.
It's like the four-wheel drive trucks of tractors is kind of what it reminds me of. You don't have anywhere to hide behind, so it's going to come out to you. Looks like you guys are back with us. I was just picking Logan's brain. He's our mini rod guy, kind of total opposite of where you guys hang out here at Heavy and Smoke. Let's take a look at Ellie's run. Ellie, you had, I thought, a very nice Saturday night pass. Let's check it out. Kinsey, go ahead and show that to us. That run makes me want to put a microphone in my hand and announce, because that is bread and butter to what these tractors like to do. Pick the front end up to 200 feet, laid it down, and ran with it out the back door, and had enough speed, like your brother's talking about. You outran our cameraman there at the very end. Very nice pass. Tell us about it.
I was nervous for the run, but whenever I started taking off, it felt good, and Dad was telling me to do what I had to normally do, and that's usually just not work myself up. I usually never do, unlike him. I was nervous about the new hitch that we put on, and I just came back from surgery about 6 months ago, so I was nervous how my leg would hold up with the clutch and everything. And Friday night, the clutch not working, so the line, and I did. And then once I took off, I was fine. It felt good. Then I just saw Dad at the end. He was like, go and go. And I saw him. I was like, I'm not stopping. And I got in a good place, and I took the lead. And it wasn't enough to hold it, but it was a good enough feeling for the first run of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We were kind of laughing, and we said Brad Holzhauer has the world's nicest test and tune facility, because this is where everybody gets to come out before the points. They still want to win, as we saw by Terry's reaction with her run there on Saturday night. But it is nice to get that seat time in before you go out there. There's no points on the line for this one. I thought it was a slick pass. I think you guys have a lot of good stuff in front of you this season. Okay, I've eased into things, and I've teased the story as long as I can. But we have a special story. Esdon, the interaction that I had with you on Saturday put goosebumps on my arms. I'm going to try to do this story justice. If I screw it up, hop on there and tell me to shut up, and you take it over. Saturday afternoon, Jason Schultz texted Kinsey and myself and said, we've got Esdon Lane, Esdon Bartling, and Esdon Lemke at this pull. Round them up and do some interaction with them. It's not hard to figure out where Esdon Bartling and Esdon Lemke kind of got their names from. So go do something with that. Have some fun with that. Esdon Lemke had to go home to a wedding. We came over and talked with you first, and you immediately said, oh, Esdon Lane, he's my hero. Like I will go and do an interview. You want to do it at 6:30? You want to do it at 9? You want to do it in 5 minutes? Like I'm game. And I knew part of the piece of the puzzle was in right there. But what you don't know is what Kinsey and I found out when we walked over to Esdon Lane's trailer. So we walked over to his trailer, brought him up to speed, said, hey, Esdon Bartling we've talked to him. He's named after you. He thinks very highly of you. He wants to meet you. You know, we know you're very busy. You're the king of smoke. It was my first time meeting him too. And I said, hey, you know, tell us what works for you. And he said, first of all, I'd love to meet him. And he goes, second of all, walks in his trailer and he comes back out holding the letter. He goes, if it's the same kid, he goes, this young man wrote me a letter 10 years ago, 12 years ago. He said, I kept it and I brought it with me on the off chance that we would cross paths this weekend. And I knew right then and there, well, this is broadcaster gold. You know, I said, can we surprise him with it? So I'll let you kind of take over. We called you, said, hey, can you come do an interview with Esdon Lane? Walk us through, you know, the interview, meeting Esdon, getting the letter back. Tell us what that was like. Tell us what that meant to you.
It was, I still can't thank you guys enough for giving me the opportunity. It was everything I hoped for out of it. You know, to be honest with you, I'm glad he wasn't the guy that, you know, shy, doesn't talk much. He talks just as much as I do. It was awesome.
I learned quickly he's a jokester. He's kind of a practical prankster kind of guy. You know, he was having a lot of fun with it. So,
but no, I actually got to see the 14 before. I've never seen it like where I could remember, obviously. And we were walking around there, and they were just kind of giving minor things about it, and it's just, you know, something at my mind as a mechanic wise, I can't even fathom how he dreams up that stuff. Going through the interview, when you brought out the envelope, I was like, at first I was like, what in the world is this? And then I looked at it and I was like, I remember in third grade when I wrote this that, you know, they told us to give this paper. Was it third grade? It's somewhere in that time frame.
It's dated at what? How old would you have been in January of 2013, whenever that was?
I would have been 10.
You were in
3. So you had 10 or
10.
probably 9 or 10. Yeah. Yeah. And we were going on. My handwriting still looks like that, by the way.
Well, actually, I was sitting here thinking you got really good handwriting for a third grader, man. So, but anywho, so tell us about the assignment. Walk us through what your teachers had you do.
They wanted us to write basically to our hero or somebody we'd like to meet that we thought was famous. And I've always remember watching Power and Noise with Dad, watching Louisville, Bowling Green, you know, those places, trying to follow up on Esdon, whether he had the MX, the 14, or the 460. And I always, you know, Dad, he'd always remember me. I was always cheering. Like at Louisville, we were sitting in the kitchen with a bunch of people watching the results or whatever. And like if Esdon got in the top 3 to get to the finals, you know, I was running around cheering and everything like that. And I was like, you know, I'm going to write Esdon. And to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be like one of those deals when you send something, it was going to get put in fake mail. You know how grade schools are, you know. I thought it was, you know.
You thought it was going. You thought it was going the same place all your Santa Claus letters went. You know.
Yeah. And then you guys pulled that out, and I'm like, you know, that gave me a lot of goosebumps. I was like, that. Yeah, back then, even now, you know, the emotion of, you know, always wanting to be like him and everything back then has carried to now so much that, you know, it just makes you remind of who you were back then and who you wanted to be or who you shot for. And I would say I pretty much hit the hat on the head with it, that I was always aiming to be like him and be about as good as I can be of a tractor puller like him. And even though I didn't
thing too, that he kept that letter. You know, think about that, you know, because he is the king of pulling. He's the king of smoke. You know, he's our ambassador. He's the biggest rock star we've got. And you would think someone like that, they're going to, you know, get letters or they're not going to think twice about it. He kept it for 12 years, brought it with him because he wanted to meet you, you know. Yeah, I assume you're named point blank, named right after him. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
so that's pretty incredible. Kinsey, go ahead and throw some of those pictures up there that we've got with Esdon and Ellie. Or so here we are right here, right in front of the old Red Line Fever. And I think this captured his personality pretty good. Wasn't bashful to put his arm around you, was he?
He's a very fun-loving person that, I always thought that he would, like I said before, I've met lots of guys that pull, the big level that they treat it as like it's a job and, they're the best in the business. He's got the biggest name in tractor pulling, in my opinion, and he is the most down-to-earth guy, enjoying life, at every moment. And he acts like one of us, one of the normal guys that, we wake up and we're all the same.
Yep. Ellie, what was your opinion of this photo? I mean, obviously you knew what this man means to I'm sure your whole family. What was it like to experience this from your point of view?
Yeah, it was cool. Obviously I wasn't around whenever Esdon first met Esdon when he was little, but just hearing all the stories and finally being able to meet him in person really lived up to his name. And he's like Esdon said, he's such a caring and loving, funny guy that, it's just like you're talking to a normal person and you really wouldn't think he's got such a big name to him.
He, he's an ambassador for the sport. It was really fun to be a part of that. I knew that we had kind of accidentally stumbled into something special. Driver interviews, we do a lot of these in the pits, and we're always looking for that new angle. This is the first one I'd ever been a part of where a crowd started to gather around us. Did you notice that at one point we were standing on the back of his truck?
Those got put in a cabinet and they put them in mom and dad's house because they think more of it. And I was like, well, I kind of want that letter, that kind of stuff. They're like, no, this is cool. It needs to go with the rest of Esdon Lane's stuff that we have and everything. I was like, all right, it's fine.
Fair enough. So one fun one I heard this weekend, and I'm going to use this a little bit, and I think some other announcers have too. You're starting to have some pretty good success. You're making a name for yourself. Your tractor's doing its thing. We've got the king of smoke. What was it you said some people have started calling the other Esdon, yourself right now? If he's the king of smoke, what does that make you?
They call all the locals around here started calling me the Prince of Smoke because because I came out with the 14 back in probably it was around that time. I'd say 16. Yeah, 16, 15, somewhere in there. And it was like, the second nature. I just came out, did my thing with the mile per hour and won quite a few hooks. And so Eli and Leroy Schluter and all them kept going on. They called me the Prince of Smoke with that. And ever since then, it carried on. And, it's our own little fun joke that we like to say. Obviously, I'm not near a big a name as Esdon Lane is. And but, yeah, it's our own little thing. And Esdon thought it was a funny thing. He's like,
I love it. I mean, I think it's perfect, So
let's talk here a little bit. You came from just a little kid in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade writing Esdon a letter. What do you got for those kids nowadays that are looking up to you? Any words of encouragement or just write your favorite puller a letter? Or what do you got?
I would say for all the kids out there who started or who are starting at the level I did, don't jump into tractor pulling a 4-1 or a pro stock. Don't do that. That spoils you, in my opinion. You need to get on the Super M's, the antiques of the world, the garden tractors. Go have fun doing that. Have your parents love doing more of that stuff with you more than what you think. These big tractors are just an excuse now to go out and meet friends and family. But don't start at the big level at 16. Go out as a kid, enjoy wanting to do it. Go pull a farm tractor. Ellie pulled an antique too. Dad never said that, you're not going to jump on something, you can't drive it with expectations. These tractors are not something that you drive like a regular farm tractor, I believe, in my firm opinion, that every kid should grow up just, going to the little brush pulls and enjoying it. And then before you know it, you'll be so far in debt with this thing that you're going to want to keep going and building up to it. And to be honest with you, all the kids out there, I know they all have these fears like I did trying to meet Esdon. We're all normal people, we're all supposed to be normal guys that we farm. We have normal 20 or, full-time jobs and stuff like that. Don't be afraid to come up and talk to anybody. We're all nice guys. Don't get me wrong, there are some guys that are like the true sticks in the mud. Don't talk to those guys, let them be their own.
Oh man. What a great question, Logan. What a great answer, Esdon. I love that. Start where it's fun, do that.
And you got to learn the basics before you jump in head first with a tractor full of horsepower.
Yeah.
Logan, who was your hero? I want to go over let's ask Logan. So mini rod guy, have you had an opportunity like this? Logan, you're only, he's just a senior in high school or junior in high school. He's still kind of there other than the fact that he's got a second in points Grand National mini rod or something like that. And he's kicking everybody's butt. But who is someone that you really want to cross paths with or that you've had the opportunity to?
One of the biggest opportunities that I had was Brett Berg has always been my hero.
Oh, good answer.
And whenever we decided that we're going to go down a mini rod path, and then Dad tells me after school, we're buying a mini rod from Brett Berg, my jaw about hit the floor on that one. And then just going up there and getting to meet Brett, they're just everyday people. And it's one of those things, even this year, meeting the Carrenders and Boltman and all of them, even on up to let's throw Van Hazley in there.
That's
all awesome guys.
Yeah. Brett Berg's that's a great answer. I think if we build our Mount Rushmore of pulling, Esdon's a first one on there, but Brett Berg's another name. And I guess I just need to round you guys up and take you up to Minnesota. You guys just should have been born up there, or maybe we need to learn that Minnesota is where legends are made or something like that. But yeah, Brett, that's a really good answer as well. Esdon, buddy, I'm glad I got to meet you this weekend because you seem like somebody, and Ellie yourself as well, full of positivity, enjoying life. You guys have such a good outlook and such a good attitude. You don't take anything for granted. You're happy when things go right. You're not afraid to admit that, I've got a hero and that's my hero. That's what pulling was for me. I was a little kid. I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't know how to drive a tractor, but these things were rock stars to me. And when I was a little kid, I said, I want to talk about them someday. I want to announce. So I know what you're talking about. I know where you're coming from to say to just be in this area. It's worth every blessing of it. Who do each of you have to thank for a great weekend or just for your pulling life in general?
I obviously have to thank my brother. He did a lot of it this weekend by setting it up and getting things ready. But also my dad. My dad's helped me a lot with just getting started in pulling. And he's just like an emotional support person that I need by my side if I need anyone. He drives me nuts sometimes, so I need my dad. But I also want to thank my Uncle Chad. He did a lot of welding on my tractor with my new hitch and just like everything this season. He's been a big part of how far we've came. My mom, my aunt, 618 Hearts, basically everyone that's just been able to support us and help us along the way with this journey.
Did you have a list written down ahead of time? That sounded like you literally rehearsed that perfectly. You've been in the winner's circle enough times that you've got your sponsor. I mean, that was, like a pro right there. Esdon, that's a tough act to follow. Who do you need to thank? Just say ditto.
You got to thank Ellie and Mom and Dad. Without those guys, it's hard to do this sport. You see a lot of guys out there with no family helping them out and everything like that. That sucks. It's the whole part of the sport is family. We're all one big family. Chad, Uncle Chad, he's done so much for us. He's one of the head guys that if there's a problem, and he's one of them that's going to rattle something off, and you're like, all right, well, yeah, it does work. All right, let's go. We'll try it, and usually it works. He's a genius with mechanics. Got to thank Kenny Kazizik and his family. They lucked in. We were going to build a new tractor, and Kenny came over one night because he lives a mile away. He goes, well, don't do that. Just, buy part of Dirty. And we lucked in there, and it's been an awesome piece. Got to thank 618 Hearts, the Hearts boys. If there's new technology and they want to try something, by God, our 2 tractors are the first ones that's going to get it to try it. And it's never failed us. It's one of them deals that we go out and we have confidence when we go out. Not trying to sound cocky there, but
no, but I like that. You want to believe in what you're doing.
Yep. I want to thank the rest of the family, even the ones that aren't on the side of the helping with the polling. This wouldn't be possible without great grandpas and all them that are wanting to get into it. Heck, my grandpa, we were talking about it 2 days ago, actually, about him pulling at the county fair with like an old 7,000 Ford or a 5,000 Ford, and none of this would be possible without those guys. And my Aunt Monica, all them out there, I know they're all out in the shop watching us right now, and they're probably all judging us what we say. But everybody knows who they are, and if I don't mention their names, deep down, I hope they know that they are. And the rest of the 85 crew with the 618s, and even without the 618 guys, their 85 class is such a class where all of us are friends. Most of us, I should say, most of us are friends where we can all ramble ideas off each other, and we're all just, whoever wins that night, what, good for them that night. It's just been a path that there's a lot of people to thank, and no matter what, I hope they all know that myself, Ellie, I know Dad and Mom outside, Kenny, we couldn't have done this without any of them.
Definitely. Takes a village, takes a family, and that's what pulling is. No bad way to go pulling. You guys are wonderful people. I'm glad you had a chance to meet Esdon Lane. I'm glad I had a chance to meet Esdon Lane. I use you as an excuse, but I'm just as happy that I got to meet each of you this weekend, because just this is the positivity that this sport needs to keep going. This is really cool talking with Logan. He's not even out of high school yet. You guys are younger drivers. Sport's moving in a great direction. Good luck this season. I'm happy for you. Keep on pulling, folks.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Yeah, it was great
coming on.
It was great meeting you guys. And
Yep.
It was great meeting you guys. Hope we run into paths over the summer, and I hope I'm not trying to sound like I'm the one talking. Ellie told me she didn't want to talk much because she doesn't want to talk. But yeah, I hope we meet paths, because to be honest with you, it wouldn't be for you guys. I wouldn't have met Esdon by I would have walked over there nonchalantly, and he would have looked at me like another person, until I introduced myself. And what you guys do for the sport, there's great things you guys are doing, and it's starting to make tractor pulling and truck pulling look like a motorsport, like a publicly known motorsport. You know what I mean?
We appreciate the support. That's what it's all about, man. Good luck. Thanks for the shout out. You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Gotcha. So we've seen Todd and Tarry Feiss. We've seen Esdon and Ellie Bartling. A lot of fun stories, a lot of cool stuff in pulling. I know you've got big plans. You've got some stuff you need to get to. Are you needing to sign off, or are you good for a little bit longer? Whatever you need to do is cool.
I've got to run. I know the boys down at 5 Mile Farms are watching me on here, waiting for me to get down there. So for them, I'm heading y'all's way, and this has been a great show tonight. We had 4 really, really good people on, and I think we put on a heck of a show. Now it's time for you to do your thing with your pulling through the past, and I'm going to say see ya.
Hey, Logan, thanks for all you do. You're doing a great job. Good luck this summer, and whatever your homework or whatever it is, don't get in trouble. Go do your thing, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. Logan Stevens, your co-host of Let's Grow Pulling, signing off. Kenny, pulling through the past. Play our little intro video. She says, let me find it. All right, pulling through the past. It's just as important to look backwards as it is to look forward in this awesome sport. Passion project of mine. These photos weren't mine. These photos were submitted to me. I've not met this gentleman yet. He's been waiting very patiently. Tonight we're featuring the herd boar, Mr. Ed Sass. Go ahead and bring him on camera and we will chat with him. Ed, thank you for joining us. How are you this evening? Jim Harmon submitted all of these pictures to me, and we've been kind of passing them out on the internet. This is Pulling Through the Past, where I go through my personal collection of vintage pulling photos, and I try to contact some of you guys and try to meet you and chat with you. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to throw a couple of pictures up here really quick, and then we're just going to have fun going down memory lane and chat about them. So the first photo that we have right here, and I don't know much about your tractor. This is not one I remember seeing as a kid, but this looks like a 460 or a 560. I'm assuming this is a light super stock on alcohol. Looks to be just a well-balanced hard runner. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was a 460 alcohol, single turbo. Light. I bought it down in Madisonville, Kentucky from Glenn Lacey back in 96, I believe it was. Okay. Glenn Freeze Jr. went down with me to look at it, and he was a good help. We ran together with the Iowa circuit and down in Missouri and Wisconsin, and Nebraska.
Of course, Glenn, legendary puller that he was. He's been, on a lot of people's thoughts and minds here lately with the passing just, in the past month or so, in the past year or so. And so we've been thinking of him. We also lost another good one with Dennis Goodwin in the past month or so. But yeah, we do want to, acknowledge all those great pullers out there. So this would have been about what year then?
That might have been 96. 96, 97, right in that territory. It was before the roll cages came out.
Where did you campaign this at mostly? Is this, Eastern Iowa, or where did you run with, or with what association?
It was the Iowa Tractor Pullers Association is mostly where I ran with. But we went up into Wisconsin, joined them, Wisconsin Pullers, and then the Missouri TPM.
Oh, okay.
And
sure.
Yep. So that one year we ran pretty hard together. Sometimes I went alone. Glenn, he would put his on to kick butt, and I put mine on to survive because I liked pulling better than I did wrenching.
That's well, and the funny part is, it's consistency that wins championships. So sometimes it's the tractor, with all the seconds and thirds and fourths at the end of the season that's collecting the bigger checks. So, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep, and I was always throwing out a lot of alcohol, and JR says let's lean that down a little bit. But lean is mean, but it can be hard on you.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is the other one that say fat is safe, or something like that?
So I always ran the tractor fat like I was.
We see Jim Harmon says, good seeing you, Ed. Jim has been, an avid watcher on this show and really has helped me a lot with sending me photos and kind of backing me up when it comes to the vintage pullers. Now, here we see it with the roll cage on it. I'm assuming that if this is 96, this is probably not too far afterwards, because those roll cages would have been coming in pretty quickly in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep, that probably would have been maybe 98 or so. Matt Goodwin built that roll cage for me out there in their shop in Farnhamville.
So between the Freezes and the Goodwins, yeah, you've got a lot of, iconic history. You got a lot of good people helping you out with this. Let's go back to that first picture. Any idea where this might have been taken at?
I think that was at New Hampton before they put the bleachers in, the first time they ran up there. And then, it was either that or it could be Boone, Iowa.
Okay. And then we've got this one. And I feel, so this one's even got a date on it. This one says July 28th, year 2000. What comes to your top of your mind when you see this photo right here?
I think that was in Humboldt, Iowa, right
Okay.
there where this picture was taken. I kind of liked Humboldt. I won that back-to-back years up there in the light super.
Tell us about some of the success that you had over the years. You know, I mean, did you grab yourself a points championship anywhere? Or, you know, what were some of your favorite passes or first place finishes that come to mind?
I never made it to first place in Iowa. I was always second to Glenn. I think I was second. I was always in the top 5 in the first 6 years I pulled. Only 6 years I pulled with Iowa. And then that one year, it was 96. I was second in points in Iowa. I was 5th in points in Wisconsin, and I was 5th in points in Missouri. And I ended up getting that's when we were Region 3 here with NTPA.
Right.
And I got in the top 5 with Region 3. That was a pretty good honor. My bucket list was always to pull at Toma and to pull at Louisville and to pull at the Indy Super Pole when they used to have the Indy Super Pole.
Yep.
So I got 2 of the bucket lists done. I pulled at Toma and Louisville, but I would have pulled at Indy if they still had it when I got Region 5th and Region 3 points.
Tell us about Toma and Louisville. I want to hear about both of those experiences.
Well, I was totally shocked. At Toma, I'd been going up there since 1980 to watch.
Yeah.
I've only missed 2 years up there going to Toma, but from pulling to watching. And that one year is 2016. I broke my back, so I didn't make it up there since I was laying in the hospital bed. And then the second year I missed was the COVID year, which everybody missed.
Right.
And that was always a joy, like you guys were talking about. I was only parked like a couple tractor or trailers down from Esdon Lane, and it's just kind of overwhelming with goosebumps when you pull in and you're parked with all these legends that you watched over the years and that.
Tell us about your experience at Louisville.
I was totally shocked. I sent the letter in to qualify, and I got the letter back that I was invited, and I go, holy crap, I couldn't believe that. So
that's the cherry on top that every puller wants to, receive.
That was quite the experience. I had my tires sharpened up for that and went through the clutch. And
what year? What year was that?
97 I pulled there.
1997. Tell us about it if you remember. What was it like taking the herd board down the Freedom Hall clay?
Oh, it was awesome. You know, just when they introduce you, you know, you're standing in line and they're introducing you to the crowd and that. You know, I'm used to sitting up there in the stands and waving and cheering on. And here this one group I always rode bus with years before, I had my little cheering section. That was kind of cool. And
do you remember when you were at Louisville, you talk about introducing, can you remember who was standing on your left and on your right? I mean, were you sandwiched between, you know, some, you know, Blackburn or something like that down there, or Brian Korth or anything?
Yeah. Terry Blackburn was in there with it. And a lot of Jim Eckenrod, I think maybe was there. Kenny Sanders wasn't, but it was just an awesome experience. You know, you don't tell them what you're going to do. They tell you what you do, and you follow them and say, yes, sir, or no, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to hear about the name of this tractor. Like I said, this is not one that I experienced a lot growing up here in Northeast Missouri or in the Midwest. The Herd Boar Macon Bacon Farm. Are you guys pork producers, or you got hogs on the farm, or tell us about the name there?
I don't have any hogs anymore, but we used to raise a lot of hogs, and that's where that came from. The herd boar is, you know, the boar takes care of the herd, the sow herd, and that's what I wanted to do with the competition. I didn't always do that, but
I like that. You wanted to take care of them, whip them into shape. So the herd boar, that's cool. What became of the old tractor Is it still out in the shop? Did it move on? Where is it at these days?
It moved on. I sold it. The original, Glenn Lacey bought it out of Missouri, so it was pulled out of Missouri at one time. I forget the name that he said he bought it from, but then I sold it to Almer Clark, and it went back down to Missouri. And he pulled it for a couple years.
What did they call it? Did they keep the name?
I don't know why he called it the Red Line Fever. I go, yeah, that's kind of already used up good by the King of Smoke.
I think there's a stamp on that one, as we just had in our last segment there when we were talking. But you know what? He's got literal people named after him at this point. He might as well have a tractor that has other tractors named after him. So
yeah,
pretty famous when people are naming everything after you. I can kind of remember that tractor because I remember thinking the same thing as you, that, well, that's not the Red Line Fever that we think of. That's kind of the Missouri Red Line Fever or whatever. So that one does ring a bell just a little bit right there. When did you get out of pulling, or do you still, pull a little bit? And then Kenzie's found this for us here. And I'm almost going to surmise that this might be, Kenzie, you can shake your head in the back room. Is this a Dan Mayer photo? This looks like one from his. Yep, she's giving me the yes. So here is your photo. Go ahead and put that one back up there, Kenz. That's a great shot. So that was Louisville.
A picture from, that's when I pulled at Louisville.
Yep. So that's there at Louisville in 1997. So probably from, Dan's collection, as she did confirm right there. That's a great action shot. That might be the best look of your tractor that we've had so far. So really, really good one right there. Do you still pull, or have you gotten out of it for good?
I gotten out of it for good. I was got married, and then they were talking about eliminating the light super stock class.
Sure.
At one point. So I sold it while there was still a market in it, and I kind of regretted it because after that, the light supers went gangbusters. But I'd had to do a whole lot of updating to try to keep up with these guys now.
The light supers jumped past. They almost had it backwards. They thought the lights were going to die and the heavies were going to turn into this mega class. Well, then the alcohol and diesel wars got even bigger than they were in the early 90s. And now the lights are kind of the ones you can count on them to have 15 at any hook. If you get 5 heavies at any time, you consider yourself fortunate. So they kind of gambled in the wrong direction on that class. If you jumped back into it, would you jump into the light super class?
Yeah, I'd go back to the light. I always liked the light super stock class. It's got all the colors: blue, yellow, green. It has the wide spectrum compared to what the big supers. That's either pro stock and all that. That's hardcore John Deere territory, and the heavy supers was always international. John Klug and Danny Dean and all them guys, Jerry Hart, all the good old super stock guys.
If you hit the Powerball big tomorrow and, time and everything wasn't even a problem, and you could just from the ground up build yourself a light super stock and just, would just take off and go pulling, what would you try to build, or what would you jump back in with?
I'm always partial to the 66 series. I'd probably go like what Glenn Freeze, his last one, red ink, that looking style. That or the 88 series hood. I like those. I farmed with those at that time.
Kind of like the Hoffman, like he's got on the Tennessee tracks down there. The Fuquas have on there the 3688 or the 5488. Those are getting more popular. They're kind of making a comeback in popularity here recently. They're good looking tractors.
Yep, yes they are. Yeah, I'd probably, if I had won the Powerball, I'd go up to Terry and I go, I need an engine.
Exactly.
He's a musician with those engines and that. He has all the Brian Course. He builds all those tractors, and
sure,
him and his boy runs them once in a while along with Brian Course. And
I lost a really good friend just over a year ago. Lived in the same town right here with me and was a longtime announcer at our regional pull, or our local pull. PC Long used to pull a 460 light super, very similar to yours. He was good friends with Terry Blackburn. He would run up to Blackburn's shop, and it was I would just sit there, couldn't wait for him to call me because I would get all the latest news on, well, here's what Terry's building or here's what he's got going on up there. And it almost would set the trend when I would hear what was going on in Blackburn's shop. I said, okay, well, that's what's going to be going on in pulling this summer. And, usually you could almost track what was going on based on what you saw up there. Last question for you, because we're running right into the dead end of time. We had a massive show tonight. What do you miss most about pulling?
Just the camaraderie, even though you're a competitor, if something happens, they're there. They'll take a part off their tractor to help you get down the track. It isn't that way in all the motorsports, like drag racing or NASCAR and all that. They're more battling. With a tractor pulling, you're more of a family. And I still got really good friendships from people tractor pulling. When I go to the polls, I look them up and we talk and reminisce. And
absolutely, yep, it's a family sport, and it's everyone's on the same team and everyone's here to support you. They want to win, but they want to win the right way and they want to help their competitor out. Ed, I wish that I'd probably scheduled this a little bit better. I probably booked more than I needed to tonight, but we had a lot of hot stories we wanted to get to. I wish I could keep asking you questions for the next hour or so. Thank you for coming on, pulling through the past. I love looking at these old pulling tractors. I love hearing straight from the mouths of the old drivers. Thank you for everything you've done for the sport. And, I hope that you continue to have fun going to pulls, over the next many, many years.
I plan on going until they put me in the ground.
That's how it ought to be, right?
Yep.
Ed Sass, driver of the Herd Bore Light Superstock, Toma and Louisville competitor, Region 3 NTPA. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You betcha, Ed. Yep. Thank you, sir. All right, folks. Mega show. That's as much fun as I've had in a long time. Todd and Tarry Feiss. Wow, did they have a lot of cool stuff to say. What a bunch of great energy. Esdon and Ellie Bartling getting it done in their hometown of Nashville, Illinois, and meeting Esdon Lane, their childhood hero. And Ed Sass, just a down-to-earth, keeping us grounded, very, very intelligent individual who, right here from the Midwest, going down to Louisville, going up to Toma. That's fun when you hear about these local regional guys doing that. Pulling on the Herd Bore. Thank you so much for watching us. We will be back next Monday night. I'll be gone each of the next 2 Mondays. You get to go old school with Jason Schultz returning to host each of the next 2 podcasts. And then I'll be back to kick off the Outlaw season moving forward again. Thanks for watching. Let's grow pulling.
Today.
Let's talk about today.
Grand national state level, you have to run non-sales, wholesale.
It is like 9,000.
The only mistake I made, I didn't put her in a registration book.
Just this ever-evolving story.